Yep. Hi, Loknath. So welcome to the interview.
Hi.
Now, I've got your CV now in front of me, but if you can just go through your work experience and whatever you have done in the past, so it would be awesome.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Loknath Prasad, and I have around 1.7 years of experience as a cloud engineer in a company called Cloud Magician. Okay, so that was a startup company basically, and that was my first job. And after completing my BTech in computer science,
Mm-hmm.
so I have taken some sort of online courses to learn a little bit of AWS, and then that company hired me and give some training around DevOps and the cloud services. And then I deployed to a project called Peace Garden. Actually, that was an Android application, and the client was basically from Qatar. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so my day-to-day, responsibility and the role in that project was to so the infrastructure we used to build that application that in AWS is AWS app runner, which is a backend service to run the code. We use S3 Amazon S3 bucket to
Your voice is breaking,
hello
probably. Yeah, your voice is breaking. I'm not sure if that's an internet
hello.
problem.
Is it fine now?
There's a lag, but yeah, we can work with it.
Okay. So the backend we have hosted on the AWS app runner, and the front end the code base in Amazon S3. And my day-to-day activity is to monitor the logs if there is any downtime, and some IAM-based rules I was creating for the other developers, other engineers as well. So yeah, that's all about it.
Okay.
And then I also, after quitting this job on July, I joined one master class from Bangalore-based company. So I thought to give a try to the cloud native applications as well to implement the DevOps skills I have in AWS. So currently I'm learned Jenkins and other CI/CD tools like Ansible, Jenkins, and Terraforms, these things. And yeah, and a little bit of experience also I have.
Okay. And you said that you've used mobile applications, right? So is it mostly
Yeah,
Android or is it iOS as well?
both
Okay.
Android and iOS.
Okay. Uh, Now I think let's start up with your mobile development experience. So can you tell me about the different sort of application layers that you have? So for example, what sort of interfaces does it have? What sort of APIs do you use? Do
Uh,
you have any microservices? What sort of database are you using in there?
okay, actually, the developer was doing the code. So my job was basically to deploy that application to the AWS services. I
Okay.
just deployed it. I did not develop any code.
Okay, all right, got it. So you have been mostly into the deployment part of it. So
Correct.
so have you been involved in any process regarding the builds or the continuous integration?
No, actually, if you talk about build, then I did not, very much involved in build cycles. But I have integrated la CI/CD pipeline using AWS CI/CD, and also some in initial days, in my training period, I uh, the CEO or the founder, he taught me how to integrate Jenkins pipeline using some Java and the Maven code. So I know that in Cloud Native App, and in AWS I know AWS CI/CD.
Okay. So that would say, so in that case, so should I be even asking you any Docker Kubernetes questions?
Yeah, you can ask me Docker Kubernetes questions and AWS questions as well.
Okay, all right. And because you said that you have mostly worked on the deployment, so that's what I was coming to. All right. So in terms of Docker, can you tell me about in what capacity and how much Docker have you used? So tell me just a few about Dockerfile. Why would you use a Dockerfile? What are the different layers in it? How would you run a Dockerfile, and what does it mean?
Okay. So if we talk about the Docker, the architecture, okay. So first we need to understand that why we kind of use the Docker. Okay. So we just used to Dockerize the one application, which is a microservices based application. If we have three tiers, like one is database tier, one is front end, one maybe some middleware tiers, then we can Dockerize those in using Docker. So in that case, we can write separate Docker files for each of the microservices to Dockerize the application. And also we can use Docker Compose to some create the infrastructure
Mhm.
once it. Yeah.
Okay. And have you used? So tell me something about Docker networking. How would you actually open up the ports? How would you connect between the pods?
Yeah, we can. Yes, we can connect the ports using port binding, like from the host machine. From like if you want to bind the port 8080 to the uh, port of the Docker container, then we can use the port binding method to bind the port.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so in terms of Docker, what do you understand by Docker daemon?
Docker daemon.
Yep. What is Docker daemon?
Hello.
Yep.
Yeah,
Can you?
Docker.
Yeah.
Yeah, Docker daemon is. Am I audible?
Yes. Yes, you are.
Okay. Docker daemon is it's a component of Docker and Docker environment. It's a component of Docker engine, and it's basically takes the input from the Docker CLI, whatever the Docker file or Docker command we are giving from the CLI. It process it, and it will execute according the Docker file or the commands
Mm.
based on that command. Yeah.
Okay. And what happens if the Docker daemon goes down?
If the Docker daemon is goes down, none of our command, whatever command we are executing from the CLI, I don't think it will work.
Okay. Now, let's say I've got a stateless application and a stateful application.
Okay.
So, which one is more easy to set up?
Okay. One is stateful application and one is stateless application,
Yep.
right? Okay.
Do you know the difference between a stateful and a stateless application?
Uh, the little I know, but not sure.
Okay. All right. Uh, what's the difference between virtualization and containerization?
Okay. Virtualization is something similar to containerization, but there is a big difference here. Like we can say the containerization is a OS level virtualization, but whereas the virtualization it is a machine level, the hardware level virtualization. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so, if I'm doing a build, so the first time the build takes, let's say, 20 seconds, and the second time it takes just 15 seconds. Can you tell me why that would be?
Yeah, because it in the first time, whatever you have configured in the Docker file, let's say you have written from Ubuntu. Okay, so this is your base machine. Sorry, yeah, this is your base operating system. So I have written from Ubuntu. So first time when you execute this command, run this Docker file, then the what a Docker daemon will do, the connect to the Docker hub and fetch that Ubuntu OS from Docker hub. So that will take some time, and it will also create one local copy of that image. So in future, if you want to use the same image in some other container, in that case that will not go to the Docker hub to download the image again. The image will be it can be found in the locally in
Okay.
our system. Yeah. So for that reason it will take less time.
In terms of running a container, what do you know? What is a sidecar?
Sidecar, yeah, I know, but again, not so much here.
Okay, all right. Uh, you worked on Kubernetes, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Can you tell me about the Kubernetes architecture and the components?
The Kubernetes architecture. Yeah.
What are the different components in?
So, yeah. So, we have in Kubernetes we have a master and node, sorry, slave and node, master and slave configuration. Okay, some components resides in master side and some components resides in the slave side. So I'll tell you both of the what components they have. So in node side there are Kube API and kubectl and mm,
That's all right. Do you know there's a component called etcd?
yes, I know etcd. I know, yes.
Okay, what does etcd do?
etcd is basically connect with the slave. Like it collect the information from the slave, like it is alive or not, it is dead or it is running or not, and send those information to the master. So according to that, master create new nodes, new slave nodes, or reschedule or delete the nodes
Mm-hmm.
in auto scaling. Yeah, and also there is API server as well, which is used to communicate with the etcd
Mm-hmm.
and the developer itself. Yeah.
So just imagine a scenario where you're trying to schedule 6 pods on a node.
Mhm.
So, but not all of them are running. Can you tell me a reason why that would be?
Okay, six. Okay, you want to add six?
Yep, I want to add 6. I've got 6 pods in the replica set. All of
Mm-hmm.
them are trying to run, but not
Okay.
all of them are running. Some are in a not running state. Can you tell me what are the different states that it can be and why they are not running? How would you troubleshoot it?
Some of are not running.
They're in a pending state.
Pending state. Okay, maybe some memory issue, like maybe the cluster is not auto scaling itself. Maybe some memory issues it is having.
And how would you troubleshoot it? How would you fix it?
We can allocate some more memory to the cluster.
And
See,
let's
if, while creating the cluster in I think in case maybe. So there is something called, we can give some amount of CPU, like some core, like 2 or 4 CPUs and some memory allocated to particular to that clusters.
Mhm.
So if beyond that memory capacity or beyond that processing power capacity it is going or scaling, then some pods may not be run properly.
Okay.
So I think that's the issue. That could be the issue. Yeah.
And what is the life cycle of a pod?
Life cycle of a pod. Hmm. If the life cycle of the pod means, if the pod dies, you are asking in that context or what?
Yep. So what happens? So let's say if you got a pod running,
Hmm.
can it keep running forever?
No, it could dies, like it is
And
possibilities are there.
why would a pod die? What can be the reason?
Maybe some sort of failure, the pod fails, or maybe some network connection issues.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, for that reason, also it can be failed. If the pod failed, then we cannot retrieve the, whatever the things there are in that pods. We cannot retrieve it.
Okay. All right. Uh, can you tell me about how would you deploy an app in Kubernetes?
How to deploy an app in
Yeah.
Kubernetes?
So what are the different files that you would create for the deployment?
Okay, so basically two files we have to create. One is deployment .yml and service.yml. Two files we have to write.
Mhm.
So while in deployment, we have to define all the replica sets and all the configuration of the our application. And in services, we'll define all the networking kind of stuffs, like what kind of things we require.
Okay. And what happens if you do not define a service?
Mm,
So can your application directly connect to a pod without a service?
no, it cannot connect.
Okay. Are you sure?
Uh, no, without, I think.
You just do a deployment and then you've got an IP address.
Mhm.
Can you connect directly to the IP address of the pod
Yeah,
without?
through IP, I can, yes, through IP, we can connect it actually.
And
Because
why would you need a service?
Uh, I think I'm not sure again, but I think if the pod is dies, okay, so the IP maybe the IP will change. Okay, so in that case, whatever the new replica is created from that pod, from that image, maybe if we define the service.yml, that it can connect again.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Now in terms of a DR, can you explain me what does a recovery time objective and recovery point objective mean?
Sorry, no
RTO.
idea.
Have you heard of RTO and RPO?
No.
Okay. All right. Uh, what do you understand by the term connection draining?
Connection draining.
Yep.
Connection draining. No, I never worked around it.
Okay. So, all right. So if you've got an instance which immediately goes down in AWS, so all the requests to that instance, what happens to that?
Okay, so okay, you were asking if the EC2 instance goes down and whatever request it is receiving, what
Yes.
happens to them?
What happens
Okay,
to that?
yeah, maybe they will see the 404 error.
Mm-hmm.
The user will see the 404 error.
Okay, interesting point. So, can you tell me the different type of HTTP errors? Like, what does 401 and 50 difference between 400 and 500 errors?
Yeah, there are HTTP errors like 404 is not found,
Mm-hmm.
like it is not responding from the getting any response from the server.
Mm-hmm.
And there are different types of things like 401 also there.
Okay, all right. Uh, in terms of keeping your application secure, so for any cloud application or even for mobile based application, so I think security is paramount. So what are
Yeah,
the
yeah.
so if you're looking at an application, what are the key features that you would implement to implement cloud security?
Okay, so while implementing while deploying the application, we have to implement the security of that application in AWS, right?
Yes. And how would you?
Yeah, in that context, like we have to use that credentials should be stored somewhere. Like in Jenkins, also you have Hasik or Bolt is some to manage the credentials. So in AWS also we have some sort of configuration to manage those credentials, so that the credentials should be we should not hard code anything, and the credentials should be stored in some places and could be fetched from that place. Okay, and also we can implement IAM roles as well, like for what sort of services and what sort of permissions the users have to access those containers.
Mhm.
Also, we can implement network security also.
Okay. And in terms of network security, can you explain in detail?
Yeah, VPC we can use.
Mhm.
VPC, and also we can consider using the firewall.
Okay. In terms of your subnets, so which application layer would you put on a private subnet and which one should be on public?
Mm, okay, in terms of subnets. Okay.
Private and public subnets exist for a reason.
Yeah, yeah.
Which part of your application layer would you put on a private and which one in public?
I think with the part which is exposed to the public, like the front end part, we can put in the public subnet, and the database in the backend part we can keep it in the private subnets,
Mhm.
because it should not be exposed to the end users.
Okay. And if your database needs to connect to internet for some reason, how would you implement that? Through a private subnet?
Uh,
Is your private subnet exposed to internet?
no, internally we can expose it, like from the services itself, from the EC2 dashboard itself, we can do that. But from the browsers, I don't think can do that.
Okay. Do you know what is a routing table?
Yeah, I know, but it'll confuse.
Okay. Uh, have you heard of the term NAT instance, NAT gateways?
NAT instance and NAT gateways. Yes. Also, there is no so much clarity about it, but I know.
Okay. All right. I'll not go deep into it. Tell me about, have you worked with RDS?
Yes.
Okay. What are the different types of databases that are supported in AWS?
Okay. So there is SQL's databases or no SQL databases as well. So in SQL databases, you can use like MySQL, and in NoSQL databases also you can use like DynamoDB or MongoDB.
And why would you use, in what scenarios would you use a NoSQL database?
The NoSQL databases are like we can keep the data in very, not in very structured format. In SQL database you used to keep the data in structured format, but in NoSQL database we can that database can use handle very vast amount of data, as the data is not structured. So if we are handling so much data, we are planning to handle so much data, in that case we can use NoSQL databases.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And in terms of firewall, do you know what is the difference between a stateful and a stateless firewall?
Stateful and stateless firewalls, right? The difference you are asking.
Yes. All right. That's okay. Now, in terms of, as you said on the database, so RDS and like SQL and NoSQL, have you heard of in-memory database?
In memory database.
Yep.
Yes, I know in memory
Okay.
database.
Can you tell me what are the different in-memory databases available?
In memory database is actually it's kind of RAM, like it process the incoming like the incoming task, and then it does not store the process and doesn't store any data inside it, and it will, after process the complete, it will remove the data from it, from its own,
Okay.
from its own memory, it will delete it.
All right. And do you know any name of the in-memory database in AWS? Have you heard about Elasticache for Redis Memcache?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I have heard. Yeah.
Okay. Just 1 second. All right. Now coming to the EC2, can you tell me what are the different Can you tell me about the AMI? What does an AMI contain? What do you understand by AMI?
AMI, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So AMI stands for Amazon Machine Instance. Okay. So that's basically a set of configuration, or you can say that is a OS, which is hosted somewhere in Amazon services, and we can just start using it by uh, just launching an instance by using that AMI. Also, we can have our own AMIs.
And what are the three uh, components of an AMI?
Three components. Mm,
That's all right. Can you tell me about IAM, the fundamental components, which is the roles, users, and groups? How are they related?
Okay.
So what do you understand by roles, users, and groups?
Okay. So, if we define any roles to, let's say, any IAM roles to a user, like I created some user, and I don't want them to use my admin console of my AWS, and I just want to use them the EC2 only. Okay, I want to manage them the EC2 only. So in that case, from my admin console, I can create one AWS IAM role for that particular user, so that when you log in, he can only view the EC2 instance and only can work on EC2 instance. In such case, like also there are some few more people who would like to work on EC2 instance, or may sub work in terms of EC2. So
Mhm.
in that case, we can create one group, okay, and assign the roles to the group. And also one person can be a part of different group.
Mhm. Okay. Do you know what is an AWS landing zone?
AWS landing zone. Okay, AWS landing zone. 1 second, give me. Mm,
Landing zone, control towers. That's
that is services. But I did not use
all right.
control
Okay.
tower.
Now coming to security. So you have got security groups and you have got NACLs, the network access control lists. Can you tell me a few differences between them?
Network access control list and security group. And security groups are something like if we want to expose the IP, like our IP, our EC2 instance IP is to be accessible from certain some from the private network, from my network only, or maybe some globally we want to expose that IP. So that sort of configuration we can do it, or also we can expose some certain ports. If you're running a application which is on port 8080, also you can expose that port so that in internet everyone can use it
Mhm.
using that. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Also you can ban incoming traffic.
Okay. So in terms of NACLs, there's
Mhm.
something called as order of rules. Do you know what is meant by order of rules? The
Order
number
of rules.
a numbered list of rules. So in NACLs, all the rules are numbered from one to, and I think it's supposed around up to maybe 100 or 1,000 rules, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So why are these rules for? What does it mean?
uh I think there is routable entries we can use for that.
Okay. All right. I think I'm done with my questions. Uh,
Yeah.
so I think we can I'll just stop the recording and I'll give you the feedback after the recording.
Yeah.
Thank you, Loknath.